everyone. This is Dr. Ron, and I'm back at you with a new episode. As a matter of fact, this is episode 60. So what is the title of this episode? It is P squared, T cubed, being a master of change, being a change maker. That's what we're going to be talking about today. But before we go there, if you could, please like, share, and subscribe. That will help me immensely reaching out to others and helping them as well. Okay, let's go ahead and get started. So what does it mean to be a master of change, a change maker? And what really exactly does P squared T cubed mean? Well, P squared T cubed is basically a short abbreviation for people, process, tools, training, and technology. And if we're thinking about business, these are the dimensions along which businesses operate or leverage. You take any one of these dimensions away, the organization will fail in some form or fashion. Obviously, if there's no people, no work gets done. If there's no process, there's chaos, right? If there's no tools to use, things get done perhaps, but very inefficiently, and cost goes up. If there's no training to use those tools, or the last one, technology, then people are going to again be inefficient. And then of course, with respect to technology, it's the technology of the tool sets that you use, and also it bifurcates. It is the technology that you're developing perhaps as a product. And in that case, you need to be able to understand the next generation, what you're trying to achieve in that technology as a product or service. So when we think about being a change maker, we're always thinking about how can we do things better? You see, remember, change for change's sake is not good at all. It's a recipe for disaster. But you see, when you think about change for value added, to be better off tomorrow than you are today, for your company to be better off tomorrow than it is today, then that's goodness. And that really tells you what perhaps a good definition of goodness is. It is ambiguous from time to time because people don't really sit down and say, here's what goodness means for me and for my company. Goodness is a measure of where you are tomorrow as compared for today. And if you're better off tomorrow, then the difference between tomorrow and today is goodness. If you're worse off tomorrow than you are today, then of course that is a measure of badness. Now, I don't want to probe that too much because that's going to be left for another day. However, what I'd like to talk to you about are 10 things that I've identified that will help you leverage the P squared T cubed and do well in your career. Because the bottom line is, you want to be the best person you can in your personal life. You want to be the best person you can be in your professional life. And if you can do that, then your family will benefit as well. So what's the first thing you should be doing in order to become a master of change or a change maker? It's educate yourself. Now, let me say this at the onset. I know people immediately jump and say, well, I need a college degree. I would highly recommend people to get a college education. However, college may not be for everyone. People's interests may lie in other areas, like in the trades. So the thing about it is, when I say educate yourself, I'm not talking about formal education, but it could be. And I'm not talking about necessarily informal education, but it could be. It could be either one of the two or both, or a mixture of it. But you see, the thing is, we have this old adage in like collecting coins: before you buy the coin, buy the book. Why would you do that? Well, you want to be as knowledgeable as you possibly can be before you make critical decisions that involve your time and effort and your money. So you want to educate yourself so that you can have the skills and the tools that will allow you to be successful. And number two, you want to stay current on the trends. Now, why is that so important? You could say it's a form of educating yourself, but I think it's more along the lines of being aware, right? Educate and then become aware by looking for trends out there in your industry, in your company, in the workforce, or in your personal life, whatever it may be. you have to understand what the trends are. Because if there's goodness going along the lines, along the current of change that the trends are causing, you don't want to be fighting that trend. Although sometimes people suddenly innovate and they disrupt the whole tabletop, and everybody has to stop and think, well, is this trend a good trend given this new innovation over here? Few people are able to do that. It does happen. But generally, what is easier done is you make yourself aware of the trends, you educate yourself, and then what do? Number 3, you look for dimensional weaknesses and opportunities for improvement. Now, that may be in your own personal life with yourself, or maybe as a professional out working for a company. So what dimensions are we talking about? Dimensional weaknesses. And let's say we're speaking of your company. Well, the dimensional weaknesses may be along the lines of people, process, tools, training, and technology. If you apply it to your personal career, you may say, here's where I want to be in 2 or 3 years, but you don't have the skill set or the education or the background, the experience. So what do you need to do? Well, you need to take corrective action. So you're looking for weaknesses along the people line, along the process. Are your processes robust? One of the first things that people need to do when they stand up a project within a company is they have to design and develop the organizational construct within the company to execute the program. And that construct, that infrastructure has to be tied in with people, process, tools, training, and technology. Let's say that you walk into a company and you get a job on a particular program. Now you're the new person in the company. You may think you're at a disadvantage, but you're not really. You're not locked into doing the same thing over and over again, the same old way forever and ever, right? You have new ideas, new perspectives. You're not trapped in a gumption trap that this is how we've always done it and this is how we're always going to do it, right? So you're able to look at things with new sets of eyes. And the processes may be using archaic tools, or the processes may have non-value added steps. So you're looking for these weaknesses and opportunities for improvement in the company's processes. If you're a manager and you realize that you don't have the right skill mix with your people, then you have to do something to change that. You either have to provide training opportunities for your people to build that skill set, or you have to hire additional people to shore up that skill set. But whatever the case is, you've got to make the change for that improvement. And then, of course, when we talk about tools, you don't send a carpenter off to build a house without his or her tools. Nothing would get done. So the tools enable the individual to do the job at hand and do it very effectively and efficiently. You may have tools, but they may not be right for the time. They may have grown old and obsolete out of the workforce, but you're still using them. You need to be able to raise your hand and say, there are better tools for this job, and we can pay for those new tools by the money we save by not using the old tools. And that's a good justification. If you could go to management and say, we need these new tools, and they're going to be very costly, but you know what? It's going to increase the efficiency of how we get the job done, and we're going to save time and money. And in the first occurrence of that savings, we're going to get the payback on what we spent on acquiring those new tools. Now, obviously, the next thing in those dimensional analysis where we're looking for the weakness and opportunities for improvement is training. Training in how do we do our job? How do we actually look for improvements? Did you know a lot of companies have in their performance appraisal something that is evaluated on how you did for the past year? How did you contribute to process improvement? Did you look for them? Did you actually bring any forward for consideration? So we need the training to understand our processes. We need the training to understand the tools we're going to use. We need the training on the technology we're developing. Knowing the historical nature of that technology within the company goes a long way in helping you add value by innovating and improving that technology that you're using, you're developing for your customer. So really that technology actually bifurcates. There's technology you use in doing the job, and then there's technology you're developing for your customer. So this is number 3. We look for weaknesses and opportunities for improvement along these dimensional lines that every company operates alone. And without any one of them or any combination of them, the company will not achieve. And actually, if it's severe enough, the company could actually be outcompeted and go out of business. Now that you know where the opportunities for improvement are, you need to basically keep track and status on how you're going to go about and implement change that will allow you to add more value to the company by improving these areas that have the weaknesses or that you've identified the opportunity for improvement in. So where do we go from there? Well, we have to then take stock. We know what needs to be done to improve the process. We know what needs to be done to improve our workforce skill mix. We know what needs to be done to improve our technology. So we have to create a plan. And in creating that plan, we need to first identify the required resources, because a plan to execute without the required resources is not a plan at all. It's a plan for failure, if anything. So number 5 is identify the required resources. And number 6 is put the plan in place. Now, you know what's coming, right? What is number 7? You have to execute to the plan. You put considerable critical thinking in developing the plan. You know that if you execute to the plan and you get the resources that you need, then you're going to be able to be successful. But you will not be successful no matter how good the plan is unless you execute to the plan. If something comes up where you think you need to change, do not just arbitrarily change and go off plan, because that means that your baselines that you've established, your cost, technical, and schedule baselines, are no longer valid if you go off plan. So there's a process for changing the plan. If you think you need to improve your plan because something new came up or you became aware of another risk, then you think about it, you discuss it, you integrate it into your plan, you rev roll your plan, you issue your plan, and then you begin to execute to that new plan. Remember, your cost, schedule, and technical baselines always have to stay current with the plan that you're executing to. As a matter of fact, there's a rule of thumb out in the aerospace and defense industry that says if you get off plan on a program in the first 3 months of that program, you will never recover. And what that means, you'll have to go full stop, have everybody stop work, re-baseline the program, develop your new plans, and then move forward. Okay. And that's been proven by history and performance on technology-driven types of programs. So that was number 7, execute to the plan. The next one is something that people just simply do not think about in this term. They think about, yes, at some point I'm going to complete the plan. The plan should have a sequence of tasks where each task is identified and at what time it's going to begin and what time it's going to be completed, right? Because there's one task, a later task will depend on the earlier task. It's called the critical path. So we need to be able to know that at some point in the future, we're going to complete the plan and declare success. Well, how do we do that? Well, we do that by being number 8, by being a closer. If you're not constantly focusing on the end state that you're driving to, you're going to lose track of what that end state is, and you're going to get off, and you're probably going to think about other things that are not critical or germane to what it is that you're trying to accomplish in the plan. So based on that, to be a closer, the first thing you need to do is to keep the end state in mind. The second thing you need to do to be a closer is constantly all your energies and focus need to be driving to that end state, ticking off the line items in your plan as you go. And that's so very, very important. Now, let's say that you closed and you were successful and you completed your plan, you delivered your product or service, whatever the end state was that you were trying to achieve in your plan, you did achieve it. So what's number 9? Well, number 9 is simply after you've been successful, or even not so successful, or maybe after you've even failed. Any one of those are still viable. You do something, you do an assessment. We call it an after action review, and that's a military term. After everything that you do that results from a plan that you created, you want to stop at the end and say, what are my lessons learned? What did I do well? What did I not do so well? What resources did I fail to identify? And take stock of all that. And then you know what you do? You take those lessons learned and you improve your process. You improve your methodology. You improve your skill set, right? These are the sorts of things that will allow you to continuously improve. And this idea of being in a state of continuously striving for improvement is something that CMMI from the Carnegie Mellon basically has put out for software developers and software companies. We want to be continuously in a state of improvement. Otherwise, we're going to become lackadaisical and okay with the status quo. And when we do that, the qualities of our products are not going to be as good. We're going to fall behind our competitors, and lots of other bad things happen. We're going to obsolesce right out of the competitive environment. So you as an individual, it's not just your company, but you as an individual in the organization, in your company, must consistently and constantly be striving for improvement. And you need to take stock along the way and gather in your lessons learned and make minor course directions as need be through formal change processes so that you can get to that end state. And so you're always wanting to scan the horizon, looking for those opportunities for improvement. And you want to gather in and leverage not just, and here's a key point, not just your lessons learned, but those around you. You want to gather in their lessons learned as well and try to improve upon them. You see, if you took my lessons learned and leveraged them, and you use your lessons learned and leverage them as well, you would do a lot better than just me. Why? Because you have more insight, because you have my lessons learned and your lessons learned. Okay, so that was number 9. After it's done, assess. Number 10, look for ways to improve upon the change process. We're always growing and learning. We're always using methodologies that will help us do things in our personal life and in our professional life. And if we want to be a change maker and we perhaps aggressively, perhaps too much, approached and drove our people in trying to achieve something, then we might have had a negative fallout. That negative fallout might have been attrition, people leaving the company because you drove them too hard or you didn't treat them as a professional and you weren't aware of it. You need to gather in your lessons learned, look for ways to change the organization, change yourself, be that change maker with a full aperture that's open. It's people, process, tools, training, technology, but it is also about you, the change maker. If you don't know yourself and you have blind spots, you're going to work against yourself in that change process. Now, how do you overcome your blind spot? And this is a bonus. You talk to people that work for you, work around you, and the people that you work for. You talk to people in your personal life, your friends and family. You solicit feedback on how you're doing and what they think you can do better or what they thought you didn't do as well as you could have. And you shouldn't get angry. You're asking for the feedback because of why? You want to do better going forward. You see, all of this is so very important if you want to be a mover and shaker. If you're a mover and shaker in the world, then you're not going to be one of those that are moved and shook. And that's so very important. I do not want to be one of those that were moved and shook. I've always striven to be one of those that were the movers and shakers, the innovators in the organizations that I've worked for and the people that I've worked with. So that's it, my friends. If you want to be a mover and shaker, a change maker, a master of change, take stock in yourself, look for opportunities to improve, and follow these 10 steps. Take care, and please know you're always on my mind. you.